never thought a single bet could change everything about me. My name is Alex, a 22-year-old college student just trying to navigate the messy maze of classes, friendships, and late-night gaming sessions. Life was simple, predictable even, but my older brother, Nathan, had a knack for turning the ordinary into something extraordinary. Sometimes terrifyingly extraordinary. Nathan had always been the type of person who thrived on control, on schemes that made everyone else feel powerless in comparison. He had charm, intelligence, and a way of making anyone follow his lead without question. And he had his eyes on me, often more than I liked, even if I didn't realize it at first. My own life, in contrast, was unremarkable, or so I thought. I had a part-time job at a local cafe, a few close friends who knew nothing about my private quirks, and a relationship with Emma, my girlfriend of nearly a year. Emma was brilliant, fiercely independent, and completely unaware of the secret I'd been hiding, my fascination with crossdressing. It wasn't about being someone else. It was about exploration, expression, and the thrill of slipping into a persona that felt freer. In the privacy of my room, I had experimented with makeup, skirts, and heels, learning how to transform myself completely, yet subtly. It was my escape, my secret indulgence, and I guarded it fiercely. No one could know, especially not Nathan. But Nathan had a way of noticing things. He noticed the slight obsession in my eyes when I admired a dress in a magazine. He noticed the way I lingered on makeup tutorials online. And most alarmingly, he noticed my hesitation whenever he playfully teased me about looking feminine. The house we shared with our parents was an ordinary suburban place, a modest two-story home with a small garden out front and a cozy living room where everyone gathered in the evenings. Our bedrooms were on opposite ends of the upstairs hallway, giving me a sense of privacy I usually cherished. But nothing about Nathan's schemes respected boundaries. One rainy Friday evening, after Emma had gone home, Nathan appeared in my room unannounced. He leaned casually against the doorframe, his usual smug grin plastered across his face. "Alex," he said, voice silky, "I've got an idea. Something fun. Something transformative." I froze, sensing the mischief brewing behind his words. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously, keeping my tone light, though my heart raced. Nathan stepped into the room, eyes scanning the shelves, the posters, the neatly arranged clothes. Then, almost deliberately, his gaze landed on the small section of my closet I had reserved for my other wardrobe. Skirts, blouses, and a single, pristine pair of heels peeked out from behind the door. My heart thumped painfully. "You've got a hobby," he said slowly, a hint of amusement in his tone. "And I think it's about time we made it public. Or, at least, more noticeable." I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt. I don't know what you mean," I stammered. Nathan smiled, sharp and teasing. "Relax, little brother. It's not permanent. It's a challenge, a bet, actually. If you accept, you'll step into a whole new role, my vision. You'll become the girl I've always imagined. The perfect version of, well, you." My mind raced. A million alarms screamed in my head. This was dangerous, humiliating. And yet, there was something undeniably thrilling about the idea. The thought of fully transforming, of becoming the very image Nathan envisioned, sparked a forbidden excitement in me that I couldn't ignore. Emma's face floated into my mind. Would she ever understand? Would she accept this side of me, especially if Nathan was orchestrating it? The thought made my stomach twist with anxiety. But deep down, a part of me, the part that had longed to experiment more boldly, felt ready. Nathan sensed the hesitation. "Don't worry," he said smoothly. "I'll guide you. We'll do it slowly, carefully. You'll be my masterpiece, Alex. My dream girl." And just like that, the challenge was set. I didn't know then how much this simple bet would consume me, blur my identity, and force me to confront desires and fears I hadn't dared explore before. Nathan left my room that night with a smirk, leaving me alone with a fluttering mix of dread and anticipation. That evening, I lingered in front of my mirror, examining my reflection. The soft lamplight highlighted features I had always seen as plain or masculine, Yet in the context of this upcoming challenge, they seemed malleable, full of potential. I imagined my hair styled, makeup applied, and the perfect outfit draping my frame. My pulse quickened. For the first time, I realized that this wasn't just a game. It was an awakening. Emma's laughter echoed in my memory, a warm reminder of my real world. But the allure of the secret, of stepping into a persona that could captivate, transform, and maybe even overpower, tugged at me relentlessly. My fingers traced the edge of a skirt tucked behind my door, the fabric soft and enticing. Nathan's plan was dangerous, reckless even, but it was irresistible. And I knew, deep in my bones, that once I stepped onto this path, nothing would ever be the same. I took a deep breath, heart hammering. The bet was set. My transformation was about to begin. And somewhere between fear and exhilaration, I realized I was ready to become the girl my brother had envisioned. My dream girl, but not without consequences I could never fully anticipate. The afternoon sun slanted through my bedroom window, casting long, warm streaks across the floor as I tried to steady my shaking hands. I had never felt more exposed, more acutely aware of every inch of my body. The blouse clung softly to my shoulders, the skirt swirled around my knees with every tentative step, and the heels added both elegance and a daunting instability I wasn't used to. Nathan watched me silently, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips, as though he were reading my thoughts before I could even speak them aloud. "Good," he said finally, "but not perfect. You need more presence. More life." Presence. Life. I wasn't sure I understood what that meant, but I knew instinctively that it was more than just posture or clothing. It was a feeling, a confidence I didn't yet possess. Nathan guided me through each movement slowly, adjusting my shoulders, showing me how to walk so that my hips swayed just enough without looking exaggerated, correcting the tilt of my head when I tried to glance sideways. Each correction, while minor, made me painfully aware of my awkwardness. And yet, there was something thrilling in the meticulous attention, the careful molding of me into someone new, someone unfamiliar yet intensely fascinating. He handed me a small mirror next, one I could hold in my hands, angled to see my face as I applied subtle touches of makeup. "Watch carefully," he instructed. "Every detail matters. The eyes, the lips, the cheekbones. You're not just dressing up, you're revealing her." My fingers trembled as I dabbed blush onto my cheeks. It felt strange, almost alien, but when I looked into the mirror, I saw the faintest glow on my skin, a softness that hadn't been there before. My lips, barely tinted, seemed fuller, more expressive. And my eyes looked different somehow, sharper, wider, more alert. Nathan's gaze never left me, and I felt both scrutinized and exhilaratingly exposed. "Don't rush," he said.
"Take your time.
"Learn to love what you see." And I tried. I tried to see the girl he was shaping, the version of me that could be both delicate and commanding, subtle yet magnetic. But every glance in the mirror also reminded me of how unnatural it all felt. I was a student, a guy who had never considered that his body could feel different in this way. And yet, beneath the nervousness, there was a stirring sensation, a strange, undeniable thrill that made my heart beat faster and my breath catch in my throat. Nathan moved me toward the living room next, where he had set up a small space for practicing movement. A low, ambient playlist played from the speakers, soft and rhythmic, giving the room a curious energy. "Walk.
Sit. Stand."
Gesture. "Let it flow naturally," he instructed. My first attempts were clumsy. I tripped slightly over the heels, nearly toppled when I tried to pivot, and my hands flailed unnaturally as I attempted to emulate the gestures Nathan demonstrated. He watched without judgment, only stepping in to correct my posture or guide my arm gently. "Relax. Feel it. Own it. She's not stiff, she's alive." I nodded, swallowing my embarrassment. Step by step, repetition by repetition, my body began to adjust. The swaying of my hips became less forced, the tilt of my head more natural, and I began to catch glimpses of the girl Nathan kept referring to in the mirror. By mid-afternoon, He added the element of expression, facial, vocal, emotional. She isn't just in the clothes, Alex. She's in the voice, the look, the subtle confidence that draws attention without demanding it. Try a smile. Not too wide. Not too forced. Natural. Lighten the eyes. I attempted it, my lips trembling, eyes darting nervously to catch his reaction. He nodded, approvingly. Better. But your mind isn't in it yet. Feel it. Pretend you're someone else, yes, but let her exist inside you. She's waiting. You just have to let her out. The lessons continued in waves of both patience and intensity. He guided me through gestures with cups of tea, books, and small household items, how to pick them up gracefully, how to hold them, how to move without drawing attention to the awkwardness of my body. Each small task, each mimicry, heightened both my awareness and my vulnerability. And yet, with every success, however minor, a flicker of pride and strange pleasure lit inside me. I was learning. Slowly, painfully, beautifully. Nathan then introduced another challenge: expression through clothing beyond just basic outfits. Accessories, he said, handing me delicate scarves, belts, and bracelets. These are subtle cues that change perception. Observe, try, adjust. I felt a strange mix of resistance and curiosity. Every touch of a scarf, every slip of a bracelet over my wrist, made me hyper-aware of how I appeared, how it altered my posture, my sway, my energy. And yet, seeing the way the combination enhanced my overall appearance, made my reflections seem more cohesive, more confident, I felt a rush of exhilaration that I couldn't quite name. Hours passed, and each moment built upon the last. He had me practice walking upstairs, sitting with crossed legs, leaning against walls, opening doors, simple tasks I'd always taken for granted, now infused with meaning, rhythm, and self-conscious elegance. Every step was a lesson, every mirror glance a test. I began to understand that this wasn't just play. It was an education in becoming someone else, someone carefully observed, shaped, and yet, paradoxically, freely expressive within the constraints of observation. Even as I progressed, internal struggle gnawed at me. My mind flickered constantly between thrill and dread. Could I really pull this off in front of others? Would Emma ever accept this version of me if she knew? Was this my choice, or simply a consequence of Nathan's manipulations? Every question came with a flutter of fear in my chest, but underneath it, excitement thrummed like a hidden drumbeat, exhilaration at the power of transformation, at the ability to feel this strange confidence for the first time. Nathan noticed the inner turmoil and addressed it in his subtle way. Your mind resists because it's unfamiliar. That's good. It means you're learning. Fear is natural. Excitement is natural. Balance them. Let her come forward, even if just for these moments. No one else needs to see yet. And somehow, those words both comforted and tormented me. I wanted to embrace it fully, yet I feared the consequences, the exposure, the social rejection. The next layer came with voice training. He instructed me to speak softly, with varied intonation, subtle pitch changes that felt foreign but transformative. Reading passages aloud, reciting small lines, even just whispering into the air, I became acutely aware of the resonance of my voice, the way it could command attention, charm, or soothe. Each exercise strengthened the duality within me, the Alex everyone knew, and the girl Nathan was coaxing out of me. Both existed, sometimes overlapping, sometimes in tension, and it was dizzying and intoxicating all at once. By evening, the cumulative exhaustion made my movements sluggish, yet the reflection in the mirror had grown increasingly convincing. My posture, gestures, and facial expressions coalesced into something resembling natural femininity, though it was still fragile, delicate, and vulnerable. Nathan's corrections became finer, less overt. The subtle nods, slight adjustments of hand placement, gentle suggestions about gaze and weight distribution, they were tiny, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly impactful. Then came the real challenge: improvisation. He asked me to move through the house naturally, responding to imaginary situations, greeting guests, answering phone calls, reacting to small surprises. while maintaining the persona he had been shaping. I stumbled at first, nearly dropping a cup, hesitating at every doorway, flinching at imaginary observers. But gradually, the exercises embedded muscle memory, intuition, and even a certain enjoyment in performance. I laughed nervously at my own awkwardness, and Nathan chuckled behind me, as if pleased to witness my tentative progress. Hours blurred as night fell, and every step, every glance, every controlled movement piled upon the last. By the time I collapsed onto my bed, drained and exhilarated, I had traversed an emotional landscape I never expected. My reflection had transformed alongside me. Alex, cautious and uncertain, was still there in the shadows, but the girl in the mirror, the one Nathan insisted I embrace, was undeniably real, undeniably present. And for the first time, I wondered if perhaps she could be permanent, if perhaps this new version of me could survive outside these controlled sessions. Nathan's parting words echoed in my mind as I drifted toward sleep. Tomorrow, we push further. She will emerge more fully. Are you ready to meet her? I didn't answer aloud, but inside, a small, defiant part of me whispered, yes. Yes, I wanted to see her. The morning sun barely penetrated the heavy curtains as I stood in front of the mirror, my body still stiff from yesterday's endless drills. The heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor as I paced the room, my heart hammering with a mixture of anticipation and terror. Today wasn't just practice. It was the first time Nathan had instructed me to leave the house as her, to step into the world fully transformed, to move beyond the controlled environment of mirrors, rooms, and rehearsals. The thought made my stomach twist into tight knots, yet beneath the fear, a flicker of exhilaration burned like an illicit flame. Nathan stood behind me, arms crossed, his eyes observing every detail of my stance, my posture, my expression. You look ready, he said, though his tone held the faintest note of challenge. But remember, readiness isn't just about clothes or heels. It's about presence, confidence, how you handle unexpected reactions. Do you think you can do that? I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his gaze and the tension it carried. I wasn't sure. Every fiber of my being screamed uncertainty, yet I wanted, more than anything, to prove to him, and to myself, that I could. I'll try, I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. Nathan nodded, unspeaking approval settling over the room. The first step outside was surreal. The familiar street, familiar sounds of morning traffic and distant voices, suddenly felt foreign through the lens of my new persona. Heads turned as I passed, some curious, some indifferent, some perhaps amused. Every glance felt magnified, a spotlight shining directly on me, exposing me. My legs shook, my breathing grew shallow, and yet, each step solidified the strange sense of identity that Nathan had painstakingly constructed. I was both Alex and someone entirely new, a duality that made my heart race with fear and thrill. Our first challenge came when I encountered Mrs. Larkin, our nosy neighbor, watering her front garden. Her eyes widened as she recognized me, or at least the unfamiliar version of me she was seeing.
Oh.
Alex, is that really you? She exclaimed, tilting her head and squinting. I forced a smile, my fingers clenching subtly at my side, and responded in the softer, more melodic voice Nathan had drilled into me. Good morning, Mrs. Larkin. Lovely day, isn't it? She nodded, seemingly satisfied with my composure, yet her gaze lingered just a moment too long, searching for cracks, for the familiar boy she thought she knew. My chest tightened with anxiety as I realized how closely I was being observed. Nathan's words echoed in my mind. Confidence, presence, control. And for a fleeting moment, I felt it. A surge of pride and thrill that I was navigating the encounter successfully, that the transformation could, in fact, survive scrutiny. But the day was only beginning. Nathan had planned a series of increasingly challenging scenarios, each designed to test the limits of my control, my composure, and the believability of the persona he had built. First, a visit to the local cafe, bustling with morning patrons. I had to order coffee, interact with the barista, make small talk, all while maintaining perfect posture, gestures, and intonation. Every interaction felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of anxiety, every glance from a stranger a potential threat to my carefully constructed image. The barista, a cheerful young woman with sharp eyes, greeted me with an easy smile. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" I hesitated only a fraction of a second, heart pounding, then responded with practiced poise. "Good morning. A cappuccino, please. With almond milk." I felt my hands tremble slightly as I handed over the money, but Nathan's presence behind me, a subtle anchor, kept me from faltering. When the barista handed me the cup with a warm smile, I realized with a jolt of triumph that I had made it through without a single misstep. But just as I allowed myself a fleeting sense of accomplishment, the next obstacle appeared. A group of teenagers lingered near the counter, glancing at me with subtle smirks and whispered comments. My cheeks burned, my body tensed, but Nathan's gentle reminder surfaced in my mind. Ignore them. She doesn't seek approval from strangers. She moves with intention. Drawing a deep breath, I straightened my back, adjusted my bag, and moved past them with a natural sway of my hips, maintaining eye contact with no one in particular, exuding the calm confidence Nathan had drilled into me. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and, above all, empowering. The day escalated further as Nathan guided me to a nearby park, where families, joggers, and dog walkers filled the paths. Here, the stakes were higher. People moved unpredictably, glanced at me, smiled, whispered, or simply ignored me, but every interaction, real or imagined, felt like a test. My legs ached from the heels, my fingers ached from gripping my bag tightly, and yet, with every step, my body adapted. The persona, once fragile and uncertain, began to assert itself, slipping out of Alex's shadow and claiming space in the world. It was during one of these moments that the first true challenge struck. A sudden gust of wind caught my skirt, lifting it slightly as I rounded a corner. Panic surged immediately, heart thundering, cheeks flaming. I froze, eyes darting around to see if anyone had noticed, and caught Nathan's calm gaze in the distance. He was smiling faintly, almost imperceptibly, a signal that this was intentional, a test. Swallowing my fear, I adjusted the skirt, smoothed it down with practiced grace, and continued walking as though nothing had happened. Inside, however, my pulse raced with a mix of fear, embarrassment, and a strange, undeniable thrill. Nathan increased the intensity further. "Now," he said, "we interact with someone who knows you." My stomach dropped. I hadn't anticipated this. My mind raced. What if Emma saw me like this? What if she laughed, judged, rejected me? But Nathan's calm, guiding hand reassured me. "Remember everything we've practiced. You are confident. You are present. You are her." The next scenario was the pinnacle of suspense, a chance encounter with my closest friends. We were walking past a local store when two of them appeared unexpectedly, chatting animatedly. My body froze, every muscle taut with anxiety. Alex, the familiar, safe self, wanted to run, to duck into a side street, to vanish. But the persona Nathan had carefully nurtured surged forward. With a deep breath, I smiled, lifted my chin slightly, and approached with a grace I hadn't known I possessed. Their eyes widened in shock as they took in the transformation. Recognition and disbelief flickered across their faces. "Alex? Wait, is that you?" one of them stammered. I maintained composure, voice soft yet firm, posture impeccable. "Yes, it's me. Nice to see you." Conversation began cautiously, tentative smiles and questions exchanged, my body trembling subtly under the surface, every word a balancing act between authenticity and performance. By mid-afternoon, the day had escalated beyond anything I'd imagined. Each interaction, each careful maneuver through the world as her, drained me physically and emotionally, yet simultaneously imbued me with a strange, intoxicating power. I was learning to navigate duality, the safe, familiar Alex, and the daring, captivating girl Nathan had revealed to me. Each step, each movement, Each glance and a passing reflective surface reinforced the growing tension and thrill of existing in both worlds simultaneously. Nathan's final test was both intimate and terrifying. He guided me to a small, secluded cafe where we had arranged a meeting with a stranger, a man who knew nothing of me, nothing of Alex, and would judge solely based on the persona I presented. The encounter was designed to push every limit, testing my composure, my gestures, my voice, and my subtle allure. As the man approached, I felt a dizzying mixture of vulnerability and excitement, fear and power, the kind of emotional turbulence that made every heartbeat seem both painfully real and exhilaratingly alive. The conversation was brief, yet intense. Every gesture, every tilt of the head, every flicker of emotion conveyed silently, yet unmistakably. The man's interest was evident, subtle nods and smiles acknowledging a presence that was entirely constructed, yet undeniably compelling. Nathan observed quietly from across the table, his expression unreadable, and I realized that every second, every reaction, every subtle movement mattered. I was performing, yes, but I was also discovering a version of myself I had never known, one that could captivate, charm, and command attention without uttering a single word beyond what had been practiced. As the encounter concluded, the adrenaline drained from my body in a sudden, exhausting rush. My legs shook, my fingers quivered, and my chest felt tight with the sheer intensity of the day. Nathan guided me back to the car silently, his hand on my shoulder steadying me as though I were a fragile artifact. "You've done well," he said finally. "But remember, this is only the beginning. She exists now, and tomorrow we test her limits further." Driving home, I stared out the window, the world blurred by exhaustion and reflection. The duality inside me pulsed vividly. Alex, the cautious, unsure, ordinary self, and the girl who had lived through fear, scrutiny, and exposure, and emerged with a newfound, intoxicating confidence. Every glance, every whispered observation, every fleeting interaction had strengthened her presence, cemented her reality, and left me both exhilarated and profoundly vulnerable. By the time we arrived home, night had fallen. The city lights reflected in my eyes as I stepped inside, each click of the heels against the floor a reminder of the day's triumphs and terrors. Nathan removed his hand from my shoulder, his gaze lingering on me with a mixture of approval and challenge. "Rest tonight," he said softly. "But remember, tomorrow we push further. The world is watching Alex. She must be ready." And as I collapsed onto the bed, drained, exhilarated, terrified, and alive in ways I had never imagined, I realized that the persona Nathan had crafted was no longer just an exercise or a performance. She was real, vibrant, and demanding more of me than I could have ever anticipated. And somewhere deep inside, Alex was beginning to understand something profound, that fear, desire, thrill, and vulnerability could coexist, and that embracing them fully might change everything. The house was silent when I returned, the only sound the soft click of the door closing behind me. The familiar space felt alien, as if I were stepping into someone else's life, someone who was both Alex and her. I moved cautiously through the hallway, heels soft against the floor, every creak magnified in my heightened awareness. Nathan had left earlier, claiming errands, but his presence lingered in the air like a tether I couldn't cut. I reached the bedroom and paused, staring at my reflection in the full-length mirror. The girl I had been all day stared back at me, confident, poised, radiant, and yet, beneath the polished exterior, a tremor of fear rippled through me. What if someone had seen? What if Emma, my girlfriend, saw me like this before I was ready? The thought sent my heart racing. Suddenly, a sound made me freeze, a subtle shuffle near the living room. My pulse spiked, breath quickening. I wasn't supposed to be alone, and yet the house felt full of unseen eyes. Carefully, I tiptoed toward the source, skirt swishing softly, mind whirling with every possible scenario. And then I saw her, Emma, standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Her eyes were wide, scanning me from head to toe. For a moment, neither of us moved, the tension thick enough to choke on. I opened my mouth to speak, to explain, but words caught in my throat. Alex wanted to plead innocence, to retreat into excuses, but the girl in the mirror demanded courage. I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and met Emma's gaze head-on. "Emma," I whispered, the name feeling foreign and heavy on my lips. She tilted her head, curiosity mingling with suspicion. "Who are you?" Her voice was soft but edged with a sharpness I couldn't ignore. Every instinct screamed to flee, to strip away the persona and become Alex again, but I couldn't.
Not now.
Not after everything. Before I could respond, the sound of keys jingling at the door froze us both. Nathan's early return was unexpected. Panic flared in my chest, heat rushing to my cheeks. Emma's eyes widened in alarm as she noticed the heels, the skirt, the carefully applied makeup. Nathan stepped inside, a calm smile on his face as he surveyed the scene. "Well," he said, voice low and deliberate, "looks like someone's already met her." He gestured subtly toward me, and I felt a shiver of anticipation and dread. Emma's gaze shifted between us, uncertainty flickering across her face. "Alex, what's going on?" she demanded, voice trembling slightly. I wanted to tell her everything, to confess, to undo the confusion, but Nathan's eyes, sharp and unwavering, reminded me that this was the test, the moment that would define everything. My body trembled as I considered the consequences. Would Emma reject me? Laugh at me? Embrace this new version of me? The air was thick with suspense, every heartbeat a countdown. I took a shaky step forward, heels clicking against the floor, and raised my chin. I'm her," I whispered, voice barely audible but trembling with conviction. Emma's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, words failing her. Nathan's presence was commanding, yet subtle, an invisible pressure urging me to maintain the persona. My legs shook, but my eyes held firm, unblinking. And then the unexpected, a knock at the door. Another visitor? A neighbor? Someone else who might see everything unravel in an instant? The sound echoed through the house, sharp and intrusive, breaking the fragile tension. Emma flinched, my heart leapt, and Nathan's smile widened ever so slightly. "This," he said softly, "is just the beginning." The knock came again, more insistent this time, sending a shiver down my spine. I glanced at Emma, whose expression was a mixture of fear, curiosity, and disbelief. My pulse raced as I realized the precariousness of our situation. One wrong move, one slip of composure, and everything could collapse. The persona I had built painstakingly over weeks, every lesson, every test, every heartbeat of fear and thrill, it all hung by a fragile thread. I took another breath, steadying myself, heels clicking again as I moved toward the door. Emma followed, hesitant, her presence both grounding and terrifying. Nathan remained behind, calm and calculating, his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin tingle. With trembling hands, I reached for the door handle. My reflection in the small glass pane showed both Alex and her, inseparably entwined, and I realized that stepping through that door meant exposing everything, risking everything for the thrill, for the truth, for the possibility of acceptance. The knock came a third time, louder, demanding. My heart pounded as I prepared to turn the handle, knowing that beyond it lay uncertainty, judgment, perhaps even revelation. Emma's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw fear, love, and curiosity collide within her gaze. I swallowed, whispered a single word under my breath, "Ready," and turned the handle. The door swung open, revealing a shadowed figure. And then, in that suspended heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. The suspense, the thrill, the fear, the exhilaration, all condensed into that single moment. I stood there, poised, transformed, exposed, and utterly alive. And then the voice came, low, unmistakable, cutting through the tension. "Well, hello there." The screen would fade to black here, leaving viewers desperate, hearts racing, fingers hovering over the comment section. Who was at the door? How would Emma react? Would the persona survive exposure, or would Alex be forced back into hiding? The questions linger unresolved. The suspense hangs like a knife above the neck of the story, daring viewers to speculate, to imagine, to debate.